Hello and welcome to today's reflection from Skipton and Grassington. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of August. Our local paper has been extolling the virtues of changes to our high street. One of our shops has had a refit at the front. Sadly, the changes are really only cosmetic. The shop was part of a chain store that closed several years ago and, to be honest, was looking pretty tatty at the front. It's now been wrapped with brightly coloured vinyls showing the many places around town that are worth visiting and making the high street look better. But it is only cosmetic. There's no shop behind it yet. This made me think about some of our church buildings, and I wondered whether some of them might be better from a wrapping in colourful vinyl with a good welcome, but more behind them than this empty shop. Or I also thought, is this just rearranging the chairs on the decks of the Titanic? I could depress you. I won't, but I could depress you with the wonderful modifications to some of our chapels over the last 20 years. Sadly, those chapels have often closed. But the newspaper reminded me of another story about church buildings. In a small town, there was an outbreak of squirrels. The squirrels were getting everywhere, and the churches were not alone. The churches were overrun with squirrels. The Presbyterian Church held a church meeting to decide what to do. There was a lot of prayer and a lot of consideration, but the meeting at the end concluded that the squirrels were predestined to be there, and therefore they should not be interfered with, because that was God's divine will. The Methodist Church met and decided that, yes, there was a problem, but perhaps they needed a working party and several committees so that they could analyse the issue and decide what was going to be the best way to solve it. The Baptist Church, the deacons met and thought, let's put in a water slide down into the baptistry, and we'll encourage the squirrels to slide down into the baptistry, and there they might drown, and that way we could get rid of this plague of squirrels. But the squirrels were far too clever for the Baptists. They enjoyed the slide down. They learnt to swim almost instinctively, and they liked it so much that more and more squirrels came, and the congregation of squirrels at the Baptist Church doubled almost overnight, so much so that they took over the church building. The Catholics came up with an equally creative idea. They thought, let's baptise all the squirrels and make them members of the church. And now the church is still there, but the squirrels are only seen at Christmas and Easter. Well, if you believe that, you believe anything. But the Bible is not clear about church buildings at all. Matthew reports Jesus saying that on Peter, he's going to build his church. Peter is going to be the rock on which the church is built. But that doesn't necessarily say that the church is a physical building. Peter, a human being, is the rock. And in Peter we read this: you yourselves, like living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. And we do know that Jesus visited the building, he visited the temple for preaching and worship. Many of our churches are going through difficult times at the moment. They're considering the high maintenance costs, the sky-high costs of electricity and lighting, especially as we come into the winter period when we shall all need to keep warm. But what about building our spirituality, our worship, our service to others, our discipleship? That doesn't necessarily need a physical building. Like Peter, we should be the rock on which God is building his church. Let's pray. Loving God, we praise you and are thankful for your love. Help us to hear your voice, to see your actions, to work for others in support of your work. Help us to make the changes without them being simply cosmetic. And in the words of a hymn writer, let others see Jesus in you. Let others see Jesus in you. Keep telling the story, be faithful and true. Let others see Jesus in you. Your life's a book before their eyes. They're reading it through and through. Say, does it point them to the skies? Do others see Jesus in you? Thanks for listening, and look out for Jesus today in yourselves and in others that you meet, and the very next person that comes into your house or you meet on the street. Good day.